Thousands of foreigners see Thailand as a cheap, vibrant paradise with no limits. But behind the lights, the nightlife, and the fascination this country holds for the world, there is a far more complex reality, especially for those who live between glamour, prejudice, and the daily fight for dignity. Because Thailand is a country where prostitution is illegal on paper but tolerated in practice, where ladyboys can be admired, desired, and turned into national symbols of the night, while still facing prejudice, loneliness, and the brutal pressure to survive off their own image, and where luxury hospitals attract people from all over the world in search of the perfect transition, while cheap improvised clinics turn that very same dream into a real risk to life. All of this happens in a place that also sells foreigners an irresistible promise to live with comfort, luxury, and freedom for a fraction of what it costs in major Western cities. And that is exactly where the Thai contradiction begins. Because before understanding the nightlife, the desire, and the price this system demands, you first need to understand why so many people arrive here believing they have found the best deal in the world. Come with me and discover this little-known side of Thailand. To understand why Thailand attracts so many people from all over the world, you have to start with the first thing that seduces them: money. Or rather, what your money becomes once you get there. Thailand sits in the heart of Southeast Asia, surrounded by Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, and Malaysia. But there is one important historical detail. It was the only country in the region to escape European colonization. That helped create a rare combination of modern infrastructure, preserved cultural identity, and prices that, for people coming from stronger economies, can feel almost unreal. That is where the logic that attracts digital nomads, retirees, and expats begins. You earn in dollars, euros, or pounds, but you spend in baht. In practice, your purchasing power explodes. What would barely pay for a cramped, noisy studio apartment in other major cities around the world can put you in a condominium in Thailand with facial recognition, a high-end gym, an infinity pool suspended over the city, and common areas that look like something out of a futuristic movie. And it is not just about housing. The core of urban life in Thailand is incredibly efficient. There is a 7-Eleven on almost every corner. In these convenience stores, you can buy ready-made meals for just a couple of dollars, pay bills, top up your phone, and escape the suffocating heat in the air conditioning. It is a level of convenience that makes many Western cities feel stuck in the past. Even food becomes a shock. In many countries, eating out is expensive and occasional. In Thailand, eating on the street is often cheaper than cooking at home. Sitting on a plastic stool on the sidewalk, for very little money, you can get a dish that would be treated as gourmet in several European capitals. This combination created a kind of modern dream, the feeling that you can hack the system, live better, spend less, buy yourself time, freedom, and comfort. Thailand seems to offer everything many people in the West feel they have lost: lightness, mobility, quality of life, and the impression that money finally stretches again. But countries that seem too cheap almost always hide another question behind the bill. Cheap for whom? And when the sun goes down, the answer begins to appear. The same Thailand that wakes up before temples and Buddha statues reveals a very different face after dark. More electric, more seductive, and far more ambiguous. When the beauty of Thai women or ladyboys finds no place in the glamour of fashion, television, or the corporate world, for many of them the path leads to a triangle of red light districts in Bangkok that the whole world knows, but few truly explain: Nana Plaza, Pat Pong, and Soy Cowboy. There, the night is not just a collection of bars. It operates like an entire economic machine. In Nana Plaza, for example, you find 3-story buildings that look like actual shopping malls of pleasure. Tourists from everywhere move through open corridors, while hundreds of women and ladyboys dance on numbered stages under lights that turn bodies into display windows. Many of these workers came from poor villages in the north of the country, and very often their families know exactly what happens in Bangkok. They know where the money comes from, the money that builds the brick house, pays the bills, supports the parents, and secures the future of younger siblings. It is a silent pact. Morality bends when survival depends on it. That is what makes Thailand a global epicenter of sex tourism. It is not just the supply, it is the institutional contradiction. Prostitution has technically been illegal since 1960, but in practice, it exists in plain sight. The law remains on paper. the city keeps running. Conversations and affection have a price. And from this comes even the phenomenon of girlfriends for hire, where foreign tourists pay for a partner who acts, for days or weeks, as companion, guide, translator, and lover all at once. Within this world, ladyboys occupy a highly visible place. In areas like Khao San Road, they approach tourists with a confidence that can be striking, and the international imagination has turned this into a game of illusion, desire, and curiosity. But behind the flawless makeup, the trained smile, and the performed seduction, there is a brutal routine. Shifts of up to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, chronic loneliness, and in many cases, the use of substances just to endure the body inside the work itself. That is the great Thai paradox. Many people are admired at night and erased during the day. The country offers tourists the fantasy of excess, freedom, and pleasure, but it rarely shows the soul of the people who sustain that fantasy. And this is where the story stops being about tourism and becomes about people. For many people in Thailand, gender is not seen only as a social identity. It can also be understood as fate, spirituality, consequence, and journey. It is within this context that the figure of the Katoi emerges, known internationally as ladyboys. To foreign eyes, they often appear as symbols of exotic beauty, boldness, and spectacle. But that image is only the surface. Within popular Buddhist imagination, the existence of a ladyboy is often not seen as a sin, but as something connected to karma, spiritual path, and past lives. In certain interpretations, it is a condition to be lived with patience, acceptance, and resilience. This foundation helps explain why Thailand developed a form of tolerance that, at first glance, seems far more open than in countries shaped by punitive religious dogmas. In rural areas, it is possible to see teenagers beginning to wear makeup, feminine clothing, and signs of femininity under the watchful eyes of their families, not always welcoming, but not always hostile either. There are even schools that have created specific bathrooms for the so-called third gender in an attempt to reduce the embarrassment these young people may feel around boys and girls. For many of them, winning does not simply mean being accepted. It means proving that this body, this identity, and this femininity can support an entire household. The rejected child can become a presenter, a model, a local celebrity, the face of a cosmetics brand, a symbol of success. And when that happens, the tone of the family conflict often changes. The identity remains complex, but money, status, and overcoming adversity begin to speak louder. But this dream comes at a heavy price. Because in a country where beauty can open doors, the pressure to pass as a biological woman stops being merely aesthetic. It becomes survival. And that is where the hardest part of all begins. The body itself becomes a battlefield. The pursuit of perfect femininity in Thailand is not a minor detail. For many young people, it begins far too early. Some start taking hormones on their own while they are still preteens, buying birth control pills and testosterone blockers from regular pharmacies without any medical supervision. The goal is simple: to stop the voice from deepening, the shoulders from broadening, the body from following a path they feel does not belong to them. But the risk is enormous. Severe hormonal imbalances, long-term damage, and unpredictable effects are treated as an acceptable price to pay for the chance to shape the body before puberty does it on its own. When the transition moves towards surgery, Thailand splits into two almost opposite worlds. On one side are Bangkok's major medical centers, hospitals that look like luxury hotels with sophisticated suites and teams that have turned gender-affirming surgery into an international reference point. The country attracts patients from all over the world not only because it charges less, sometimes up to 60% below prices in the United States or Europe, but because it has built an impressive technical reputation. The level of specialization has reached the point where many of these surgeons are seen as true sculptors of flesh, capable of performing facial feminization with millimetric precision and complex procedures that have placed Thailand at the top of this global market. For these doctors, transition is not necessarily treated as madness, deviation, or sin, but as correction, alignment, reconstruction. And it was precisely this massive demand that turned stigma into into a highly sophisticated medical export business. But on the other side of that same industry, there's a darker reality. In Bangkok, there are still low-cost clinics where the pursuit of the ideal body comes dangerously close to Russian roulette. Places without proper infrastructure, sometimes hidden inside discrete buildings where the operating room may share space with improvised areas and where there is not even a dedicated anesthesiologist. The surgeon administers the anesthesia himself. The patient remains semi-conscious, hearing the instruments, feeling the weight of a transformation that could change her life or put it at risk. And why would anyone accept that? Because beauty is not just vanity. Often, it works like currency. There is an invisible glass ceiling. If you are considered an exceptionally beautiful ladyboy, the world opens up. You can become the face of a campaign, a stage star, a known name, a contestant in Miss International Queen, a pageant that offers prestige, visibility, and prizes worth years of work. But if that standard is not reached, the path can quickly lead downward to entertainment bars, precarious jobs, and, in many cases, the more ambiguous zones of sex tourism. In other words, the country that became a global reference in trans medicine also reveals an uncomfortable truth. Not every transition happens out of complete freedom. Many take place under pressure from a market that rewards certain bodies and pushes others to the margins. And that leads us to an uncomfortable question. How can a country that appears so tolerant turn acceptance into opportunity and, at the same time, into a brutal selection mechanism? The answer lies in the very cultural fabric of Thailand. If Thailand seems modern, efficient, and open, it is also a country shaped by invisible rules that can confuse almost any foreigner. Because behind the urban convenience and cosmopolitan tourism, there is a much deeper symbolic logic around the body: respect, purity, and spirituality. The first of these is the hierarchy of the human body. For many Thai people, the head is the most sacred part of the body, the place associated with the soul and with dignity. The feet, on the other hand, occupy the opposite extreme. They are the lowest, most impure, and least dignified part, and that completely changes everyday social life. Touching someone's head can be seen as a serious offense. Pointing your feet at another person is already considered rude, but pointing them at an image of Buddha, at something sacred, or at the king can be interpreted as a profound act of disrespect. To Western eyes, this logic may seem minor, but it reveals the backbone of a culture where the body carries very clear moral hierarchies. The same applies to shoes. Taking them off at the entrance is not some folkloric detail. It is a serious rule of civility. Homes, temples, clinics, and even certain shops require this gesture. Walking into a place with your shoes on when it is forbidden can feel almost aggressive. Even the food carries this mixture of fascination and strangeness. The foundation of Thai cuisine is full of rice, fresh vegetables, and vibrant dishes. But the night markets reveal another side. Fried insects sold as everyday snacks, from crickets to bamboo worms, and even scorpions displayed with total normality. The shock, in this case, is not just in the taste. It is in realizing that what feels like a tourist challenge to a foreigner is, for many people there, simply a normal habit. And perhaps no event represents this meeting of tradition, chaos, and collective catharsis better than Songkran, the Thai New Year. For 3 days, the entire country turns into a nationwide water fight. Monks, police officers, elderly people, children, and tourists all take part in the same ritual of washing away the previous year. Buckets, hoses, water guns, water trucks, everything becomes an instrument of celebration. It is fun, absurd, and deeply symbolic all at once. But behind all of this, there is something even stronger. Thailand seems to embrace excess, pleasure, modernity, and difference, while still operating on extremely rigid pillars of respect, order, and reverence. And nowhere shows this contrast more powerfully than politics. Thailand projects an image of modernity, safety, and stability to the world. But behind that appearance, it remains tied to a structure marked by extreme reverence for the monarchy and recurring military interference. Under the current king, Meha Vajiralongkorn, that tension has taken on an entirely new dimension. The comparison with his father helps explain the rupture. Bhumibol Adulyadej was treated for decades as a symbol of national unity and popular devotion. Vajiralongkorn, on the other hand, has become associated with an image of distance, luxury, and eccentricity. International reports and political demonstrations have drawn attention to his long stays in Germany, his expanded control over crown-linked assets, and a lifestyle that, in the eyes of many critics, contrasts sharply with the image of sacrifice and closeness cultivated by the previous monarchy. It was in this atmosphere that the 2020 protests erupted. For the first time in the country's recent history, tens of thousands of young people took to the streets to openly challenge the monarchy, demanding transparency over its power, its wealth, and its political role. What had once been taboo was suddenly being said in public, opening a direct confrontation between a new generation calling for real democracy and a system sustained by obedience, fear, and silence. The most sensitive point in this structure is the lèse-majesté law. Under Section 112 of Thailand's Criminal Code, anyone found guilty of defaming, insulting, or threatening the king, the queen, the heir, or the regent can face prison sentences of 3 to 15 years per charge. Since the 2020 protests, hundreds of people have been prosecuted under this law, and cases like that of lawyer and activist Arnon Nampa show just how far the system is willing to go to contain public criticism of the monarchy. That is what makes Thailand feel like a country split between two realities. On one side, there are skyscrapers, global tourism, cutting-edge hospitals, and an urban life that projects order and efficiency. On the other, there is a political structure in which the monarchy remains protected by extremely harsh laws, the army continues to act as the hidden referee of power, and public criticism can still cost decades of freedom. In the end, Thailand cannot be reduced to its low cost of living, cheap food, intense nightlife, or reputation as a paradise for foreigners. All of that exists, but it does not tell the whole story. Behind this seductive image lies a country where desire, money, tradition, spirituality, and survival blend together in a way few societies in the world can sustain with such apparent ease. So, did you enjoy getting to know a little more about Thailand? In the first pinned comment, you'll find other videos like this one, such as The Kingdom of Bhutan, Where Happiness is the Law, and The Bizarre Life of North Korea's Elite. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end, and very soon I'll be back with another video about the most beautiful and contradictory places on the planet.